It wouldn't be a real Zoom meeting if we didn't have problems with audio.
Can you hear me all right now?
Uh,
Apple's better than PC, but you can't hear me because you're on a
let me.
PC. Hey, can you hear me
No.
now? Nope. Should have bought an apple. Should have bought an apple.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you fine.
And welcome back to the Aussie Screen Printers Club, the podcast that's aimed at least a little bit of talking about screen printing in Australia. Welcome back, listeners. Sorry for the hiatus. We've all been really busy. And as it turns out, organising 3 people to meet up is quite tricky when we're all so busy. So we did have a guest today, but because of my schedule, we couldn't fit it all in. So we thought this week we'd just do the two of us having a bit of a banter, bit of Scottish banter, although neither of us are really Scottish. Yeah, just to catch up with one another. So, mate, how are you? We've hit the year end. How's it all been going?
Yeah, it's been going good. We're just sort of finishing up the end of financial year production rush, and just settling into it again. Um, Thankfully this month hasn't been too quiet. I was a bit worried it would be, because we do so many sort of uniforms and stuff, but it's been surprisingly decent. So I won't complain about that.
Did you mean like because the year end came, people were trying to shift money and buy stuff, but you thought it might quieten down in July once they spent all their dollars?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
that's it. Yeah, everyone was trying to sort of squeeze in as many invoices last year for end of financial year. I was a bit worried it was going to be pretty quiet this month. But yeah, no, it's been sort of pretty consistent, which is good. I haven't got too many years for reference under my belt yet, so it's always a bit of a mystery of what time of year it's going to be busy or quiet or whatever.
And do you do your own accounts, or do you have an accountant, a bookmaker? Goodness, we all need a bookmaker, a
Yeah,
bookkeeper. That's a bit desperate, isn't it? A bookmaker.
yeah. Make
Yeah.
up my own book. Um,
How do you do all of that?
I used to just do my own stuff during the year and then go see an accountant, just try and fix it at the end. Um, but now, the last couple of months, we've taken on a bookkeeper, which has been really good, just having that um, bit of experience of what we should be doing and make sure we're doing the right things at the right time, which has been probably pretty lucky, I think.
Yeah, because you're still using QuickBooks. I say still, it's not as if you have to graduate from QuickBooks, but you obviously like QuickBooks.
I've always used it, so I know my way around it. But everyone says the same thing. Even my bookkeepers tried to make me change, but it works well with the software. So
And with the bookkeeper, they're like an agency or an individual that works for you part-time. How does that work out?
yeah, they just I just pay like a monthly fee, and they're just local here in Toowoomba. Um, and yeah, they just jump on sort of once a week or so and check everything that's coming in and match up the bank records with the QuickBook records,
Hmm.
um, and just make sure everyone's actually paid the right amount for each invoice, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Is that something you kind of really monitor? Do you run reports monthly, or like do you just let it all go and kind of hope for the best, or what's your kind of level of involvement with that?
I always have a look at what we've done, uh, or how we're tracking in the month, and what the month before or once like was, I guess, once we have finished the month. Um, I always do like having a look at what sort of things we've sold or who we've sold to, um, when I'm in that sort of frame of mind of looking into the reporting and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not. on there all the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's good to keep an eye on it, but I guess we all need to be doing the printing and everything else that we do at the same
Mm.
time. Yeah, but it turned out well. Are you a company or a sole trader, or what's your?
Yeah, just a sole trader at the moment.
Have you thought
Um,
about changing that, or are you happy with that model?
I think I would like to change and probably to the next couple of years. At the moment, probably doesn't make too much sense for me, but yeah, it does seem like the go. Um, a few benefits to it. So,
Hmm.
were you guys? I assume you'd be a company or a trust or something.
Yeah, we've always been a company.
Hmm.
I don't. I must have run a sole trader at some point, I think, back in the
Hmm.
day, but we've always just done companies. I find it easier. It's a little bit different in Australia, but in the UK and what was Europe, you get a level of limited liability. You get some of that in the Australian model. So
Hmm.
you really stuff up, which is kind of hard, I think, with a t-shirt business.
Hmm.
But in other businesses, if you really stuff up and you get sued, it's limited. Like the liability that you have as director is limited.
Okay.
So they can't sue you. I mean, they can for things like, manslaughter or, well, I can't, industrial manslaughter, I think the correct term
Hmm.
is, something like that, obviously. Um, so we've always done that model and we find it better for tax and just managing finances and capital purchases.
Hmm.
There are a few other benefits as well, but um, also it's easier to sell. It's its own entity with its own assets and its own revenue rather than it just being to an individual. So
Yeah.
you want to package it for sale or run the IP that way. Feel like that can be better. But that said, there are lots of benefits from being a sole trader as well. You know,
Hmm.
um, I feel like it's the biggest, like the accounting and reporting side of a business when you're getting started is often overlooked, partly because it's like boring. Um,
Hmm.
and who wants to spend time reconciling a bank account when you could be printing t-shirts or whatever? But I feel like it's overlooked, and it's good to kind of really get your head into it and understand it as much as you need to in a business,
Mm.
um, to be able to start to project and um, look at efficiencies more carefully, and buying chemicals more cheaply or whatever it is. But
Mm.
looking at your markets, I find that stuff really interesting and very helpful in a business. We don't use QuickBooks. You're the one. We're all using Zero, I guess. I don't know. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people use that, but is that what you hear, that they use Zero? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that's what our accountant or our bookkeeper would like us to use too. But I
Yeah.
was looking maybe, yeah, there's often been times that we've tried different softwares and I've had QuickBooks with other businesses that I've done in the past and it seems to be the one that sort of across everything will usually have an integration. But
Mm.
um, the last few that we've sort of tried in this sort of industry, that it does seem to usually be a zero option there for integrating. So I guess, yeah, I guess it's just me. But I've sort of had a fine experience as far as the stuff that I use, I guess. But um, I hate learning new software again. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I agree. And look, they all do the same thing, right? I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
just counting the beans and,
Mm-hmm.
it's a journal. So um, if you know what you like and you like what you know and you're familiar with it, there probably isn't a need to change. I having talked about reporting, I have to say the standard reporting in Zero is pony. It's just garbage.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't understand it. But so there are these other plugins that a third party that you can. Well, they're not really plugins, are they? You just kind of export your data and start reporting from it. But
Okay.
I like to really crunch those things, and yeah, so I was very disappointed in that. But I mean, it's a great product. apart from that,
Mm.
you know.
Mm.
But yeah, if you're familiar with what you like, then why change, you know, I guess. And I guess
Yeah.
if you do incorporate at some point and become a company, you know, that would be a good time to switch over
Mm.
your
Yeah.
occupation. Because it is that year when you're in the old system and you're in the new and you move to the new, it's a real nightmare. But
Mm.
you know, once you've got a year and a bit over that, it's
It's
usually
fine.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we found, just going back to that thing about the market slowing, we slowed
Mm.
down heaps in this
Mm-hmm.
last week. Yeah, it's been good in a way because my colleague's been off with sick kids all week, so I've been managing her work as well as my own. So it's been kind of nice that it's been quieter because I didn't know how I was going to get through it, and it's going to be nicer when it kicks in the actual print shop because there's always that lag. You know, sales can take, as you know, months to kind of
Mm.
tip into the actual pipeline. So it will be nice for them in a couple more weeks. But yeah, a little bit worrying. Um,
Mm.
Dropped right down. June was a little bit lower than normal, but May was a lot bigger than normal.
Mm.
Just don't quite get it. Um,
How does that compare for your previous years? Just, yeah, I guess it is just lower in general.
yeah, no, we're up big time. Like
Okay.
overall, not I say big time.
Okay.
I think we're 21% up in the last financial year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our growth, revenue growth. But it's just weird. Like June is normally our biggest month. We didn't quite hit the target. We allocated 5% growth for targets. So whatever we did last year, we just add 5% for this year and try and get that. So June was below that. We didn't make it. I think we got to 96, 97%. But May, it blew out to 115%, you know.
Okay.
But it's strange. Like June normally is the one. So I don't know if it was just that people were ahead of the game and ordered more in
Mm.
May. Um, but yeah, apart from that, March and April were slightly down for us. Um, but overall, as I say, we grew. So that kind of analysis I feel is good. And
Mm.
um, we will look at that at the beginning of the month. We'll ignore it for a week and then we'll start looking at it daily just to track trends. I turned off all the I mean, this is people listening to this are going to go, yeah, well, this is the correlation, Sam. I turned off all the advertising a week ago and we stopped mailing out so that I could restructure our deals and the pricing, which obviously is affecting the revenue. But I didn't think it would be that big. Um, so, yeah, I think we're currently sitting about 30% of what we would normally project. And what's this? This is the 12th, is it? 13th. So we're nearly halfway through
Mm-hmm.
and only sitting at 30%. So yeah, anyway, we feel like we're down a bit. You thought that was going to happen, but it sort of bounced back for you.
Yeah, I yeah, there was stuff coming through that I was sort of surprised with it and try and sneak uh in June. Um and some like companies that I thought would be trying to do that sort of thing. Um some sort of like mining clients that we do stuff for. Um but yeah, it's been, I guess, the end of last week, start of this week was a bit slow. Um but the end of the week seemed to have a lot more people sort of accepting those quotes we did earlier in the week and late last week.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I actually sort of was almost caught up on everything. I was like, oh, gee, I've usually got a bit of a list to try and get through. Now
Okay.
I've got to maybe start hitting people up. But yeah, it seems to have come back a little bit. But I didn't mind it being a bit slower at the start of the week. I was sort of feeling a bit run down almost. So I was like, whatever.
Hmm. Hmm. And tell us about your premises. Where are you with that? Your new premises?
It's a bit of a not very far. It's much the same. the builders moved a bit more of his stuff, but not much. And sort of getting to like the stage of like, come on, like, because we've started doing some more screen printing now that my hand's better,
Yeah, right.
but the screen printing is still at home. So it's like, and then there's like some stuff that we use here or sort of between both. You just got to make sure we've got everything with us. And we had originally moved like all our inks and everything here. And then we started screen printing again. And it's like, got to make sure you have inks that you need to mix or for the job or
Gosh,
whatever,
right.
and this and that. So I was sort of hoping, I'm hoping we can have everything here by the time I go away for my honeymoon end of September. But I don't know. I don't know. I think it's going to drag it a bit.
Yeah, typical builder, right? What can we say?
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. There's a
over-promising and
lot of stuff
under-delivering.
here to move, so
Oh, really?
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I did offer. I was like, oh, what if we just chipped in, give us like your couple of apprentices for the day or two, and we would just like smash it out and move it wherever. He's like, oh no, I'll get to it. And there's been a few wet days where I'm surprised that they sort of haven't got enough to do to like jump in the shed here, but um, yeah, I guess it's just time.
Yeah, perennial problem with builders.
Mm,
Which takes me on to very quickly, because I'd love to tick this off real quick, where we're at
mm.
with our new premises. So 2 and a bit weeks ago, there's a builder on site. Fantastic. So I went over there and said, "Hey, how you going?" He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Crane will be here beginning of next week. They've got this huge crane to lift the slabs, the walls, the
Yeah.
concrete walls." And yeah, hasn't arrived yet. So
Oh,
don't know what to make. But anyway, we'll just carry
because
on.
it's just next door, pretty much. Hey,
It is,
you
yeah.
can.
Throw a
I guess
cricket
you're
ball to it.
watching it all the time. You can.
Yeah,
It goes very slowly when you're always seeing it.
absolutely. The guys are just, looking at it when the doors open constantly,
Mm,
going, nothing happening. So it is depressing with builders. Notwithstanding, I've been trying to get a builder to quote to build out inside to want to, really build a proper wet room, a drying room, a pre-press room, and a screen storage on one side, and on the other side, a small office, a stock area, and a smoko room.
mm-hmm.
And it's going to be quite expensive, I think. But I've gone to 3 different builders. Yeah, yeah, we'll get a price to you. Nothing, absolutely
Yeah.
nothing. Um, so yeah, it's depressing in a way, but we just have to carry on with all of that. Um, so you're having to run back to your home to do the printing, take the inks you want. And
Mm.
what about the garments? Are they being printed to the new premises?
Yeah. So they all get delivered here, and that's yeah. There's a couple of times I'm like, okay, I've got all my stuff. It's like, oh, don't forget the actual shirts. So um, it's just a bit of a pain because then like most of our like trolleys and stuff that we stack garments on are here. So and like the benches and tables and stuff are here for like where most of our stuff is, and then there's like a few
Straight.
scraggly bits left at the shed at home. So um, yeah, it's not ideal. So
And the builder's subcontracting the premises to you, right? So you're kind of
mm,
tied to them.
and that's
You can't
like that
complain to another
kind of
landlord.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that was like how it started to be. He was buying another place and with a big shed on it, so he wasn't going to need this. But I think that's fallen through. Um,
Mm.
so I'm not sure what if they're that much in a rush to buy another place, or he said he's got a mate that's got a bit of shed space that he could move it to, but he doesn't want to move it twice. So I'm like, I can definitely see like we're sort of at his mercy, and I can see why he doesn't want to do that. But it's also like you sort of said we could be in at this date and stuff would be gone at this date.
Maybe just
But
keep
yeah,
nagging away gently until he
Yeah.
Sizes
So
and
I was saying to Kate we should just get as many boxes as we can and just stack them up everywhere to make it look like we're really running out of space.
yeah,
We need that extra space.
yeah. Does he realize that you're not fully functional in the new? Does he realize you
I
got a
don't
press back at the house?
I don't think so. I
No.
think I'm just gonna start dropping a few hints saying like, yeah, a few things just so he gets sort of the idea. But he's sort of like a pretty blase kind of dude. Like he's just like, yeah, no, all good, whatever. Like pretty casual. I don't think he has thought about it too much.
That's frustrating. I think I just tell him, listen, mate,
Mm,
I got a printing press sitting in the old building and I need it here. Can we make this?
yeah,
Just push him and see. Um,
yeah, because
but yeah, you
it's
don't
sort
want
of
to ruin the relationship, I guess.
no, that's it. And like I'd say what we've got now, the rent we're paying for the space we've got now is pretty pricey. But once we've got the actual bed space, which is the part that we want and need,
Mm,
then the rent's pretty reasonable. But yeah, it's just but the benefit of it is that we don't have to have like 20 grand tied up in bonds and that sort of thing with another if we took it on ourselves.
mm,
So that's
mm.
sort of um, why it works pretty well for us.
And you mentioned there that you're able to print again. That must be nice.
Mm. It still hurts a bit, but I can do it. I've got those ergonomic squeegees, so um, yeah. But it is good to be printing again and starting to teach Kate who helps in embroidery. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully she can start doing a little bit.
Is that the first time she's done any screen printing?
Yeah.
And
So she's
how,
she's like, why are we doing this? It's such a pain. Um, but I was like, oh, it's quicker when I'm not trying to like tell you everything about screen printing. I was like, this used to be like a proper trade, so there's don't expect to know it all overnight, and you're not going to remember everything I'm telling you right now either.
yeah. Incidentally, how did you go about training and what is the hardest part for them to learn, do you think?
The screen printing,
Yeah.
I guess it's just the intricacies of like what affects everything, and it's just like it seems pretty simple from the outside, but then once you start telling her about yeah, I suppose all the screen making side of things, um, printing is you can sort of tell if it's a good print or not. But that other side of things, it's just a lot of information um, for one person to take on sort of straight away. I guess everyone sort of has learnt over time and watched lots of videos and that sort of thing. But then when you're with your boss and he's like telling you all this stuff, they're just probably like, oh,
Yeah. It is. I like what you said there about the intricacies and knowing what a good print looks like because um you can let's say lay down a white on top of a black t-shirt, flash it,
mm-hmm.
watch it come around and think that looks great, when you're starting out. But then of course when you know what screen printing really is, you look at it and go, wow, we need to obviously put the
A little
next
bit.
layer of ink on this one. Yeah, it's funny. We had a really annoying job this week that I'm going to be really careful how I say this. It's a customer that we've supplied since 2017 every year, even in the COVID year. And it's an order, I think, generally of around 400 hoodies
Mm-hmm.
and some polos. I think the hoodies have got two different designs. I can't quite remember. Anyway, they're just a regular customer. They like us, we like them, no problem. This year, the lady who normally deals with them, I could see was copied into the email trail, but someone else was handling the relationship with us.
Okay.
And they paid, let me get this right. So it's the week before last, or the one that's just gone. They started engaging with us on the Monday. we got everything cleared up for the Wednesday and in a box. So they had the invoice. They paid, or the payment went through on Thursday night, and I got an email Friday morning saying, "Are the garments on their way?" And I thought, "What? You just paid for them. They're not even here, you know?"
Uh-huh.
So I
Yeah.
wrote
Oh, you
back,
haven't. Yeah, you haven't
"Yeah,"
even
like
ordered them yet.
I sent an email back going, haha, what are you talking about? Oh no, the conference starts on Wednesday. So I phoned the guy up and said, "Look, what's going on?" He was really good about it. He said he dropped the ball, um, but clearly he had no idea. The expectations were like, we'll just pop down and pick them up. Now, these
Hmm.
guys were 8 hours away. So I said, "Look, we'll get them ordered straight away. See if we can get them on a special up to us. They'll probably be with us Tuesday, but if not, more likely Wednesday.
Hmm.
We'll put on a night shift and we'll get them on a truck on Thursday. They'll be with you Friday, failing that, the following Monday, when the whole thing, their whole conference was over."
Uh, uh-huh.
But I was determined not to refund. This is big bucks.
Mm.
So he said, "That's not good enough." And I said, "Well, I don't know what you think we can do. I'm putting on a night shift." He said, "I'll drive someone up. Someone will come up and pick them up." And I said, "Fine, your issue kind of thing, but
Hmm.
we'll do what we can." Now, I then went and spoke to Lydia, the production director, who quite rightly spat the dummy because I should have obviously organized this first. That's the problem with working with one of your children. You have the idea that whatever you say is fine, right? Because you're the dad, you're the boss. Anyway, yeah, she really spat the dummy and she said, "You can organize a night shift with the guys, but I'm not doing it." I said, "That's fine. I'll do it." And it's because she went into Monday and saw all the orders and very quickly could see there was a lot of color work on some big 6, 7, 8 color jobs,
Mm.
good size jobs. One is a regular clothing brand, Aboriginal clothing brand that they sell at all the airports and things. So they're big stock ups. Um, and she just looked at that and went, "Wow, you've just given me this other big order that I've got to find a space." So anyway, as it happens, the stock came in on Tuesday midday-ish. And the
Hmm.
team, I'd prepared the team for a night shift for Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So they said they're happy to do it. So they stayed on and knocked it over. And I contacted the customer during the day saying, "We're going to do this tonight." They said, "We'll have someone there tomorrow morning." And drove, 8 hours, um,
Hmm.
picked them up. They were very grateful and thankful, to the team. And they gave us a little present, which I won't go into the details of it, but it wasn't something that could be shared with the team.
Mm.
And, so anyway, that's fine. I just thought maybe a box of chocolates for the guys would be nice. So that was a bit of a curveball. But as it was, Lydia just stayed on and did it because it made with the team, it just made it heaps quicker. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot more confidence in the team when Lydia's with them because the buck stops with her. So the team respond very well when she's not
Hmm.
there. The buck stops with them, and they get a bit more panicky, and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
understandable. There's no sweat with that, um, but it can be a bit stressful for them. So that was a bit of a strange curveball. Don't like that when that happens.
No.
Do you ever
And
have
time
that
just,
kind of situation?
yeah. And it's, I guess, being up here, and it'd be the same for you, just shipping times. It's like if we were in Melbourne, it'd be no dramas because you get the garments like the next day.
Just drive down
But
and get them,
for
right?
us, yeah, yeah, that's it. We're just going pick them up. um, but here, it seems like you should be able to just sneak it in or whatever. But by the time you account for shipping up here or to the customer, and then there's a couple of weekends in there just to stuff it up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's not. There's not. much you can do. You can only do what you so much for a job.
And it's weird. Some customers really think that we have everything in stock, right? So, it's a job.
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
What have you got in stock? I'm like, not much.
Yeah.
There's
And
a
sometimes,
lot of
you know,
bottles.
I just go to the AS Color website and say, these are the stocks, but they're not with us.
Hmm.
We carry a load of black and white and hoodies and tees and most of the, different levels. And then we carry the ones where you stuffed up in the ordering. These
Yep.
aren't meant to be pink, they're meant to be blue or whatever. Oh, okay. Um, yeah, and I guess it's that whole thing of educating. Well, is it? I was going to say, is it that whole thing there of educating the customer or just accepting that you can't really educate the customer? They're not going to understand really how long it takes or
Mm.
where the stock comes from or whatever. We are their answer to their problem. So why do
Mm.
they need to know that we're getting them from Melbourne or wherever? Yeah, it's stressful. Um, oh, it's good to hear that you're printing again, though, even if you've got to drive home to do it. Um, it's and does your colleague understand the kind of efficiency that there is in printing? It must be a stark contrast. She's an expert on embroidery, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can she see that
Um,
screen printing is just very efficient?
she said, yeah, she's like, I've sort of explained, and she can tell, like, it's all set up is like where the costs are as such. But once it's going, you can sort of smash it out pretty well. Um, but I like sort of asked, I was like, well, after that, like the first day that we were doing some printing, I was like, what do you think? Like, is it something you would like to learn more? Because it's not just a job as such. Like, it's not just something you do. You sort of got to love it in a way, because otherwise it's just annoying. Um, and she's like, no, she's very interested in like learning it more. And it's funny enough, her sister works at Velplex and does something there, in their like transfer printing or something like that. So I was like, oh, what's your sister doing? Just going to move to Toowoomba and
Yeah.
print for me. um, but no, so she seems interested. But I think, yeah, I don't know if she's a screen printer, but I think she can definitely help in the meantime.
Mm.
And you
Mm.
never know, you might surprise her.
Yeah, it is something that you do need to kind of love a bit, isn't it? You need to
Mm.
really enjoy those variables those intricacies you mentioned, making it work well. I did a job this morning. I say a job; it was a personal job for my wife's going to Britain, and she wanted me to print some garments for a friend of hers' son.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a nice small halftone. Oh, it's quite a big halftone, and I was just so excited to get on the auto on
Mm.
my own. No one else here. Got everything turned on and everything, and just enjoyed heating up the platens. It was only for a few garments, obviously. Um, and yeah, that's the point, right? Like it was like, yeah, I really love screen printing. It's a really cool industry, and this stuff's
Mm.
cool. Putting all the business stuff to one side, the actual job of printing can be really enjoyable. Of course, it can be a complete nightmare as well sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but I think some people just don't enjoy that. I mean, I got the sense when we chatted to Chook last, and g'day Chook if you're listening in, um, she was enjoying talking to other people about screen printing
Hmm.
because sometimes you talk to your mates and they go, oh, "Don't talk about that stuff again." We're a bit sick of
Like,
this
why?
chat. You know, and it's nice to find comrades that are in the fight with you, and um, but that's because it is that sort of thing where you're either really into it or you're just like, no, this isn't so cool.
Mm.
Um, yeah, we had a visit from a guy who used to work for us, and we haven't seen him for the best part of 3 years.
Oh,
He
well.
just happened to be in the area and he called in. his eyes came out on stalks when he realized how much we'd grown. And he found,
Mhm.
when he went home, he found a little plan of how we were originally going to set up these premises.
Oh,
He was here when
because
we moved
he.
in.
Oh, true. And you wouldn't have had the auto yet either, would you?
No, we're just running on the
No.
8 color manual, little
Hmm.
old tunnel dryer. Um, and he and I built the tables and the dark room and things like that. And he took a photo on his phone of this little plan that we drew out and sent it to me. And I was like, oh boy, what were we thinking that, this little press in the middle of this great big warehouse, and
Hmm.
now we can't fit anything in here. So that was kind of neat. It was good to see him as well. But the point of mentioning him was he was a student doing primary ed and has since graduated and gone into that and some other things, and had never even seen a press before, and
Hmm.
was determined more or less from day one when he started with. He's a rugby player, like he was, full on muscles. I was determined to get him on the press as quickly as I could. So day
Mm.
one, I was in saying this is how you back flood, and he, hope he's not listening. He never was able to do those really nice, tight, beautiful prints. But
Hmm.
as a print flash print man, he was just a Trojan. He was an auto.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Um, and having someone like that, I think, is really, really useful. But
Mm.
long term, you need someone to really get those intricacies and those variables and dial them in properly.
Yeah. I think I think sort of stepping away for a bit, because even we've we haven't probably been screen printing as much as we the last sort of 6 months, just trying to focus, allow me to focus on other areas. Um, but still screen printing a bit, but just not doing it as much. It sort of let me get out of my head a little bit about because it to me sort of 6 months ago I'm like how am I supposed to teach someone to screen print
Mm.
but now you sort of have taken a little bit of a step back. Um, we've sort of got I've sort of got everything dialed in. I can have some good SOPs for everything, and really we probably make it a bit more complicated than it is most of the time. Um, so yeah, I think if they've got the right sort of uh, attitude, it's just it's not good enough, or yeah, to sort of how could it be better? I think probably anyone could do it in a way, but we probably make it in our heads as technical screen printers, make it seem a bit harder than it is generally.
I think there's a couple of issues. So you actually have standard operating procedures written out or something, do you?
I've got yeah, so just as far as times for exposing all the different meshes and um, starting to do more SOPs of especially because we do a lot of DTF about print placement for different size artwork and that sort of thing. Um, but I really do like the idea of systems. Um, and I think if you get those built out, it gives them a good framework to work between.
Mm. Mm.
Um, Bit of a guide.
We have them. I say them, there's like two. We
Mm-hmm.
have basically just a label stuck on the exposure unit saying, if it's this emulsion and that mesh count, press
Mm.
number one. Like it's got the one that we've got, you can, what's the correct term? You can,
I'll program like a
yeah,
recipe almost.
yeah, correct. You can recipe it. So, if it's that mesh count, this emulsion, then use recipe number one or whatever. Um, but we have an SOP written out for these auto coater, just so
Mm-hmm.
that anyone in theory can go over and use it, which I think is pretty good. But we tend to coat different mesh counts differently. So
Mm.
we'd coat a 90T with 2 and 2, but with a 43, we'd probably do a 1 and 1. The
Okay.
70, we might do a 1 and 2. Um, and so just that's probably not in the SOP, but just having someone that knows that's the case is critical.
Mm,
But also those sorts of things for us are also about this is a clean it out, you know, don't cut corners on cleaning this out. Be careful you don't damage the rim of the actual coating
mm,
troughs and things like that. But what I reckon is SOPs are good where the process is repeatable without variance.
mm,
So, you know, you fill a scoop coater or two with the emulsion, and then you press a button in relation to the screen mesh. That's repeatable. That's
mm,
nice. But I think the best workers are the ones that know how to cope with variance. So the ones that know how to problem solve.
mm,
You know, this hasn't worked because I don't know, the mesh wasn't washed properly or cleaned out properly or whatever, or the ink's not reduced enough, or you know whatever it is. And they're the ones that get it. And there are very few of those in my experience. Like we
mm.
just did, obviously we've done our year end, and yesterday was the day when you have to send all the information to the ATO about, you know, who you paid what. I can't remember the term for that at all. Um, and I looked at it, and there were 13 staff. I was like, wow,
Mm,
that's quite a bit of turnover, you know, in a year, because we only have 6 at the moment.
mm.
And you know, you look at the names and you go, oh, yeah, I remember that person. Oh, I remember that one as well. You know, I mean, you start thinking of, oh, that's right. That's when we had to get 60 screens remeshed, you know,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. And I thought about it. Yeah, that person didn't know couldn't spot the error. They couldn't problem solve by firstly not realizing there was an error. But even
Mm,
when there was an error and we said, look, you got to do this differently, they couldn't quite learn that. And I feel like they're not the people for our industry. Well, if they are, they're the people that you do the auto coding with.
yeah.
You're not that they're not the people you use to blow out a screen or to run a press or whatever, even to catch. You know, catching a garment can be, I mean, it's very simple. Like it couldn't be easier, right? Take
Mm,
it, put it in a pile, check the quantity, check the size for that quantity. But then you've got to say to them, now we need you to be the last stopgap on the quality of this print, you know? Or even when you've got someone unloading off a press, the speed can really inhibit their ability to check the quality. And they might not see subtle changes that are happening every, you know, 20 T's that are coming off or whatever. So having good brains that can spot that, I think, is really
mm,
critical. Um, I'll be careful how I say this because I really love our team. I think they're amazing. They work well as a team together. They work really well individually, and by and large, they produce a great garment. But we did have a job recently where it was for a local barber, and they did that job on their own without Lydia. And they put them in a bag with one on top in the front office here. So when a customer came in, they could just pick it up there. And on my way out that night, I looked at the print, and without a nanosecond, I, I saw something was wrong, and I stopped and looked, and I could see that. Well, my educated guess was that they just didn't flash it enough, and so the ink wasn't quite opaque enough when the highlight white went on. They just flashed it
okay.
for a couple of seconds more. It would have solved that. And I looked at it and went, right, well, the customer's not getting that. And I thought, oh, am I being a bit of a, you know, pedant here?
Mm,
Well, on the Monday morning, I was working here and Lydia came in and instantly she saw it and went, this isn't good enough. Do you see what I mean? I thought, well, there's a good sense
mm.
check. And then, you know, we spoke to the team about it and they were like, oh, yeah, right. You know, and I'm like, guys, we do this tons of times a day. What went wrong, you know? And that's the bit you got to resolve. What was it? And I said to the person operating at the time, what did what would you do to fix that? And took a while. I guess we need to check the flash was working, or that it
Mm.
was being flashed enough seconds, because we've got 2 flashes and a stampinator on the auto, so those patterns can get really hot. So they'll flash at 3 seconds, like it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
quick. Well, maybe it was a little bit colder that day. We're hitting kind of below zero,
Mm.
which would mean you probably need to add a couple of seconds, that kind of thing. So I digress immensely, but I feel like standard operating procedures just cannot teach that kind of thing.
Yeah,
People need to be problem solvers.
absolutely.
Question for you. Do you like, or do you do this now, or do you like the idea of bonusing staff? What's your
Mm.
thinking on that?
I don't yet. We're not really in a position yet, but I think I do because I got. I think when I was at the farm when I first started, we did get a bonus, maybe once or twice, and it was really helpful. And I think everyone, my boss thought it like once I sort of moved into the more management side, he wasn't a big fan of it for some reason. He's like, oh, it's only money. Everyone will just always want more money, but I think that chunk does make a difference to people, um, especially sort of. I think it was usually end of financial year time, but even like towards Christmas, I think when people are a little bit more stressed and they like money's not everything, but it's usually a good stress point for most people.
Mm.
I think that that sense of relief or just that little bit extra that you're like, oh yeah, cool, that's really going to help me out. I think it means a bit more to people um, than it sort of seems, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. I've never done it before. We do it in Ministry of Shirts. We
Mm-hmm.
bonus 6 monthly, so
Mm,
Christmas time and the end of the financial year. And I think it is good. I mean, like when I say bonus, it's quite handsome. People can get 2 or 3 grand in a
mm,
bonus. Um, but we weren't going to do that, at the end of the financial year. We're going to reduce that greatly because we need just to, you know, save a bit of cash for the move,
mm,
if it ever happens. Um, but what I did is I just prepared the staff. I said, look, we are getting bonuses, but it's not going to be what we normally get. Please be reminded that the bonus isn't obligatory, but we just
mm,
like to do it so they don't sort of start to really think, oh, I've got that money coming then and that coming then, that they understand. But I think it's important, particularly in this kind of work where they're just doing the same thing, so repetitive, this job, that they know that they're not just doing it for the hourly rate, they're contributing to something bigger and getting something bigger back. Um,
mm.
I spent my bonus on buying something for the business. I bought a laser engraver.
Oh yeah.
It's one of these things, in the morning we do a stand up agile methodology drains up meeting. So we generally start at 9. I come in at 8:30 or earlier. Another guy starts at 8:30 and mixes inks and gets them ready or sets a press up or whatever. And we'll come together at 9 and we'll stand up in the yard there and just talk about what we've done at the weekend, anything interesting. Sometimes someone will bring in a show and tell, or have a funny anecdote they want to share. I'm only talking about 2 or 3 minutes, not like
Mm,
an hour long story. Um, and we then talk about the work we're going to be doing that day and what the priority is. And this is a 6-color job. We might get it up on the screen or whatever. Um, and I've totally forgotten why I was telling you this story.
laser
Um,
engraving.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I said to them, "Oh, that's right." They were all saying thanks for the bonus and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I spent my bonus on a laser engraver." And I could see Lydia was like, "What? What are you doing now, Dad?" what crazy idea have you got? And it was a crazy idea, but it's really cool. I love it. It arrived, and I've been
Hmm.
mucking around, poisoning myself with fumes and
Yeah.
engraving all sorts of things from business cards with QR codes. But what I wanted to show you is this. Sorry for the
Yeah,
people
no.
listening online. This is just a tea infuser with a um,
Ah,
it's a bit of a gimmick, but it's got a temperature gauge that is digital on the top, and it's, I honestly don't think anyone would use it, but these are very popular in China, of course, because everyone
uh-huh.
wanders around with their. I reckon you could get about 5 tea leaves in that, and probably not much hot water in there. But anyway, bit of fun. We're just doing them at the moment as um, little kind of gifts for people. So we've done a load of them that are very small Ministry of Shirts logo, and on the other side it has the customer logo or their artwork or whatever is
Oh,
happening.
that's cool.
Pretty neat. So that took um, 4 minutes to engrave.
Hmm.
Yep. The actual unit, this one, we just bought 20 of them or something. I think it was $6. But I've been working with some people in China to find out some better rates and buy in bulk. Also
Mm.
did some coasters. Sorry, just show you these.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty thin
Are
bit
those
of wood.
timber?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
wooden coasters. Got some slate coming and some other mugs and stuff to muck around with. Oh, and some business cards. I can find my wallet. Realize this is completely useless for anyone listening and not able to see this on the YouTube channel.
Does
Um,
can it cut that? So does that wood come in sheets and then it cuts
it cuts it
it
out.
out too?
Yeah,
Okay.
it
Cool.
burns it out. So it can go through 8 mil of
Oh
timber,
yeah.
like probably not oak or something, but
Hmm.
a lighter wood. So metal business cards with
Nice.
QR codes on the back, one for a phone number and the other for the web. Just mucking around, really. Um, but yeah, so that's what I did with my. But I thought it'd be nice to kind of, um, I don't really want to take the money myself, so put it back into the business in some way.
Mm.
We made a profit this financial year just gone. Um, Normally, and again, this is a kind of should you be a sole trader or a company type question. Normally we would work out a way of utilizing that capital um, to reduce the company tax you pay the government. A few years ago, they had a instant asset write-off, 100% write-off thing
Mm.
coming out of COVID. So that's when we bought a ton of equipment. And now I think that's limited to like 20K or 30K or something like that. Um, so when you think of it this way, if you've got a pot of money, you obviously want to keep it for the future. Remember, you've got to pay 25% to the government. If you then happen to use all that money or the 75% that's left for payroll, um, you obviously need to downsize your operation if you're not continuing to grow and make revenue. But
Mm.
if you end up taking that 25%, sorry, that 75% and using it for payroll, you're ostensibly, losing 55% in tax because you're effectively double paying it. So you're paying company
Oh yeah.
tax, and you're using the money to give it to people. You're taking the tax off them and giving it to the government. So sometimes it's just better to take the money, give it to them as a bonus, or take it yourself. Just pay the 30%, and you've netted some. So I find that stuff frustrating in this
Mm.
country. They have a similar thing in Britain where I'm from, but um, yeah. So it's good to do that, but I don't like paying tax. Who does? Obviously, we
No.
we need to pay it for legal reasons. Um, so yeah, that was my laser engraver and dealing with the Chinese. I used to work in China for a couple of years, and um, yeah, just different way of doing business culturally. So trying to
Mm.
work with a guy to get the price down now because your shipping's the killer, right?
Yeah.
If you put it on a ship, it's going to take you, 6 weeks. ironically, to get here. You're probably going to get held up in customs. You probably have to pay some duty, but it's dirt cheap. But if you want to get it by the end of next week, you're going to pay heaps.
Yeah.
So,
We had a large stubby cooler order we did at the start of the year, and we quoted it, and then the customer took a while to accept the quote and get something happening. And in that time, the exchange rate had gone up for like the Aussie to US dollar, and we ended up losing and the shipping got more expensive too because then it was around that Chinese New Year time too.
uh,
Um, Ended up costing it was like hundreds more that just came out of the profit that ended up not being that much. But it's so now actually that was another thing we added to our quotes that's only, and I probably could have said something, but they're a pretty good customer. But now I say it's only valid for 30 days or whatever. But I'm interested with the promo products. I've been thinking about doing some little packs for our sort of bigger customers just to, because we do promo a little bit, but trying to sort of encourage that a bit more, that we can do that side of things too. So I've been thinking about what sort of things we should put together to give to customers, not too expensive, but is still decent quality and something they would actually use, I guess.
mm, mm. Something that they won't look at and go, "Yep, that goes straight to the bin room or whatever the bin."
The back of the cupboard somewhere.
Yeah, we mess around with all of that stuff just because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
We just try different things out and see what takes. And we're often gifting, like a big order will get one of these with their
Mm-hmm.
logo on. I'm hopeful that they'll come back and go, "Oh, they're pretty neat. How much are those?"
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I feel like it's good to experiment and see what works. But the difficulty I find with these types of things is continuing to get the same supply.
Mm.
So I don't know, you might find we get 1,000 of these in and they last us, a year or whatever. But then when you come to reorder, I know we no longer manufacture those, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And not having too many choices. I think that's the other thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't imagine everyone's going to want a coaster, to be honest, or a slate thing, As my dear wife said, "Oh, I can see what everyone's getting for Christmas this year,"
Yeah, that's it.
a piece of slate with a picture of them on it or
Military
something.
shirts.
Yeah. Oh, she won't have that. No, she won't want that in the house. Um, yeah, so it's good fun. Learned a lot about lasers. The one we got has got two different lasers in it that do different kinds of surfaces, which is pretty cool. Um, but it's the ventilation, man. You got,
Mm.
it's pretty bad for you, as I discovered.
Is it a is it like a brand name one or sort of one of those Chinese ones, I guess?
It's a brand name.
Okay.
Well, I say that. I suspect it's Chinese. It's called a
Mm.
Laser
Okay.
Pecker 4, which is this rotary thing, obviously for bottles and stuff, as well as a flat plate. And it's pretty cool. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can take out the bottom plate and actually pick it up and put it on something, like you'd hold it up against the wall. So I tried to laser engrave into our stainless steel surgical
Oh,
tables just by
yeah.
taking the middle out and putting it on the top. So that's kind of neat, and you can change all the angles and everything. The software's a piece of cake, but I think the hardest thing is working out which of the two lasers to use,
Mm.
um, on what surface, and also what intensity of laser power, depth of cut, and what DPI, because it goes up to it goes up to 8K.
Oh, wow.
I've been found it's better to do the engraving at 1K, but just do two or three passes if it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I did. That's not good. I did. also buy some other things. So we've got some other things coming in. I just went mad on AliExpress for a day. Bought these. These are plastic,
Uh-huh.
plastic and lasers. Well, you can do the math. That's about as much use as a chocolate teapot, really. So they're going straight to the bin. In fact, here's one. Probably can't see this, but somewhere on
Oh yeah.
here, there's a hole that goes straight through.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, but I just bought a ton of different things to kind of try stuff out and see.
Mm.
Um, but it'll engrave tiny amounts. Sorry, I'm getting carried away with it now, but um,
Oh, cool.
that stops anyone stealing my particular knife. But even more than that, look at this. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the actual blade. Can't quite
Oh
see it.
yeah.
It's an engraving on
Yeah.
here. You can even
And
engrave
does it give
on a
you?
ring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Does it have
bizarre.
like an outline for you to line up, like a
Yeah,
just a red laser or something?
yeah. It's got another kind of flashing laser that shows you the actual physical location. You
Hmm.
put it into kind of preview mode, and you can see that. So it helps you line it up. But also, it's got these kind of chocks. So if you're doing a repetitive thing, it'll
Oh
just
yeah,
fit it into
cool.
the same spot. So yeah, it's good. I mean, I can see that you can spend a lot more money.
Mm.
You can easily spend six figures on something. So don't think we're quite at that level. But yeah, it just might be an interesting addition to the
Mm.
other things we do. Um, Pens, I need to give that a go at some point. Um, sorry, you can tell I'm really enamored with it, but that kind of
That's
thing.
it.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just something we did this week. Um, one other new piece of news, in fact, two other bits of news I wanted to share. One was about the Anatol Vault. Been listening so
Mhm.
much to other podcasts over the years, and everybody's got their favorite press brand. And I do like rock, no question, but I actually also do like Anatol. And I think I want to give Anatol a bit of a shout out. I suppose that needs to go via Howard Debney in a way. If you're unaware of it, Howard is from Leapfrog Machinery, and he's the importer of Anatol here, but also the guys in the US and especially in Poland and um, Ukraine as well, who have been looking after us. We had an issue. A lot of people kind of have a go, M&R's better than Anatol, or Anatol's better than whoever. Um, they all basically do the same thing. And I know that some of them do certain things a lot better. But at the end of the day, if you can't print, 500 garments plus out of your auto, then it's not an auto, if you know what I mean. They all do the same thing. We had an issue at a fundamental level to do with screen clamps on the Anatol Vault. They weren't what I wanted. They weren't perfect enough for what I wanted. And I thought after a while, I was like, I'm asking for something that is just pushing the manufacturer too far. And I dare say if it had been an M&R, probably will have had the same issue. But here's the thing, um, and big shout out to Nazar from Ukraine, who is the Anatol rep that we deal with internationally, but also Jan in Poland and Anatol himself. So there is a Mr. Anatol, and it's his first name is Anatol, the CEO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I had some communication directly with him. Went up to the top, and he
Yeah.
said, we're going to work with you on this to fix it. And you know what? They did. They completely remachined the screen holders in the Anatol press in the vault, and we worked together on why it wasn't working the way I wanted, and where we thought it needed to be re-engineered and so on. And I'm no engineer, that needs to be said right from the outset. And I thought, yeah, okay, well, I don't know if these guys are going to do anything, but they did. They completely rebuilt them, re-engineered them, redesigned them, and they're now applying those new ones to all of their presses going forward.
Yeah, right.
They shipped them over to us and helped us to install them, and they fixed the problem. And I wanted to shout out to them because there aren't many manufacturers today that would do that. And I
Yeah,
dare say I'm
absolutely.
a bit of a petulant child and stamp my feet like an infant, but um, they really worked with us. And I was really chuffed with that. So thanks to them. Um, Anatol, a great company, brilliant press. A lot of their other products, we use a few of them, are also really great. Um, but yeah, this isn't an advert for Anatol. We're not partial to particular brands, but I just wanted to say that, and I was astounded. They didn't give up. They just kept going until they got there with it, which I think is amazing. A lot of those companies would just say, "Look, mate, that's the way it is."
Mm.
You know, sort of go somewhere else. Um, the other thing that was interesting is we recently tested. I don't know if you do this. Do you stick to the chemicals you always use, and then maybe try something from time to time, or are you kind of, oh yeah, I'll try out a new chemical this week, see if that one's better? What do you?
I'll do, yeah, mainly just keep using the one that works, and then occasionally I'll be like, I would give this one a crack, but I don't chop and change too much once it
Yeah,
works. Okay.
we're the same. Um, However, I've recently tested out a couple of different ink removers, reclaimed
Uh-huh.
chemicals. That's to say, plastisol um, ink removers and press washes, and also we're testing out two different dip tank chemicals. Um, dip tank chemicals are on a par; they're very similar, and we are going to test out a third one, which claims that you dip you dip the screen. So basically, you card out the plastisol, but you don't wash out the ink.
Hmm.
Currently, we'd card it out, wash it out of the screen, and then dip it, and then blow it out.
Okay.
This one, you card it out, and then you just dip the screen in, and then you wash it
Uh-huh.
out in the dip tank. Then you take it out and blow it out. If that works, that will save us heaps of time because reclaiming screens is a big issue for us. We
Mm.
can do 30 screens plus in a day, and it doesn't take long before there's a ton of screens that need reclaiming. Um, so I'm going to try that out. But anyway, the other one that we tested. So normally we'd use Franmar for the press wash and the plastisol remover, the ink remover. And we tested out a product by AGM Chemicals. You get this from Jones Brothers, and I think it's just
Hmm.
called Green Citrus Wash. And I gave it to the guys and said, "Try this out, see what you think." And they came back and said, "What is this? This is amazing." And they showed me. Um, so it's a nicer smell, it's
Mm.
cheaper, and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that was really cool about it is they didn't have to use much, and it lifted the ink very quickly. But even after that, if they dipped the screen and then reclaimed it by blowing it out, and there was a little bit of ink left, almost
Hmm.
like a dehazing agent, you could take the same chemical and just squish it in again, give it a little rub and blow it out, and it was gone. And I was
Mm.
like, this is a pretty powerful chemical, guys. Like maybe don't put this on the edges of the screen too much in case the glue starts to come away, and it hasn't. It's been fine.
Uh-huh.
That's been a really good find. You can
Mm.
chat to the guys down there at Jones about that. Um, and yeah, it's not often you get another chemical that's a bit like a wonder chemical. You think, oh, I should share that. Um,
Mm.
but I know what you mean
Haven't
about
heard about that
staying.
company.
Say again,
I haven't heard of that company yet. I don't think
Jones or
the what's the EG
AGM.
whatever
Yeah,
AGM.
AGN Chemicals, I think they're just called.
Okay.
Um, but it's the green citrus wash. So I'd recommend trialing it out anyway. Um, we spend a lot of money on these things, and I think it's a little bit cheaper. But if it's more efficient, then it's definitely a bit cheaper, if you see what I mean, in terms of getting
Mm.
through the quantity of screens. Um, but yeah, I'm not saying we'll completely stop using Franmar, but we'll certainly run these chemicals side by side and, make a decision going forward. But I know what you mean. It's kind of like, oh, it's all working fine. Um, the other thing that happened this week, um, yellow ink. So Rutland yellow. I think it
I
might be.
saw your story.
Did you see that little story? Oh man, it was like a rock. And the guys came in and said, "What's wrong with this?" And I said, "It's cured." Like it was just unreal. How did this happen? Did you leave it in the sun in the summer or something? Like, no, we use this every week. What are you on about? And it was just so cold. It was -1 out there.
Hmm.
But I tried to get it in the ink mixer with some reducer, and it just about burnt out the ink mixer. It was unreal. But I think it was a bit of an old ink. I did speak to the supplier, and they sent me up another one, which seems to be better. But that was a bit of a shock. Do you find
Yeah,
any particular inks? Because Toowoomba gets pretty cold as well, right?
it
Yeah,
was pretty cold up here. I think all of ours. Oh, there was one the other day when we were mixing. I feel like it might have been like a yellow or blue or something. Yeah, it was. It took a bit to stir up to get moving a little bit, just to ink like mix in to make a Pantone. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's frustrating. But you use Union and Wilflex, don't you?
yeah, Union for all the colours and Wilflex for white.
Yeah. Okay. Which is the
Yeah,
white you use?
Street Fighter 2, I think it is.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Good.
I enjoy
Yeah.
it. I think it works pretty well. I haven't. I was trying lots of whites at the start, um, but that one seems to work sweet for us up here. So, but I have heard of some other ones. I think you mentioned use something different. I think. Do you?
We use a Union white. We've
Okay.
tried them all, and I like the Wilflex one as well. I don't remember. I think it might be called Polycotton or something. Union
Hmm.
Polycotton, maybe something like that. The guys love that, and we mix that every morning. So the guys come in, or one of the guys comes in at 8:30, and that's his first job. Is he just remixes the white, gets it flowing, and it's like cream. It's really,
Mm.
really nice. Um, and then Rutland and Wilflex on a few things. Um, but yeah, do you reduce your inks for a manual press? Yeah,
Yeah, I do. Even I reduced my white too
yeah,
a little bit, 8% or something. I think it is.
yeah. It's hard to do that. It's hard not to do that if you're on like a 70T or a 90T on a manual. It's possible with your arms, really, isn't it? Um, I didn't know about that sort of stuff when I got going. Yeah,
Uh,
biceps were growing, because it just takes it out of you, doesn't it? If you've got a long print to do and you've got
mm.
a ton of them to do, yeah, all these things you learn too late. Um, so anything interesting on the cards for you going forward next week, apart from trying to get this builder to get his act together?
Yeah, that's it. Um, been looking a little bit at a couple of things. Um, hiring a like virtual designer to do proofing for us.
Oh, okay. Wow,
Um,
that's cool.
yeah, because we have our internal graphic designer, and she's awesome, very thorough. But I think almost to uh, like a bit thorough for proof sometimes, because I think we might be able to sneak through a bit quicker, possibly. But um, we've been getting a bit of extra sort of branding type work, and we do a little bit of other bits and pieces, which is probably just more of a distraction between against what we normally do. But um, I think we might try and start using her for the actual like stuff that she should be doing. That sort of otherwise she's probably a bit overqualified for. Um, and then using someone externally to do just run of the mill roofing, because it's a lot cheaper than what we currently would pay for one, I guess. So
When you say
um,
proofing, are you talking about creating the mock-ups or creating the artwork to be approved, before
yeah,
going to press?
and then like even assigning like the thread colors and that sort of thing of what we're going to use for embroidery, or choose the inks and that sort of thing, um, which can sort of. We had a job this week that there's it was an okay amount, and the customer brought us their garments, which we love. Um,
Mhm.
but it wasn't. It was surprisingly difficult just trying to get the right. It was an embroidery job, just getting the right thread colors, because the logo was sort of supplied only in a way that would work on lighter backgrounds. So we sort of had to change it around a little bit to make it work on a dark background. Um,
Mm.
but all of a sudden, it's been like however long, and we've just picked some thread colors for this job. So um, I think that might be, if we can um, get someone good, we would say, a few $100s a week on doing proofs for our jobs. So it's fine for bigger jobs, like a proof costs whatever, but it's those smaller jobs that we get. We still like to do a proof for, and I don't think we even make money on them by the time we do a good proof. So I think that's one thing we're interested in looking at more. Um, Also looking at possibly changing job management softwares for a similar sort of thing. So just sort of doing my research and a bit of homework. So
What you mean instead of hoops? Is that? Yeah,
yeah,
right.
so we got
Wow.
we got Deco Network. It was about a year ago, and we went away from it. But it was also, I'd only been on my own doing it full time for a few months at that stage, and it was just me. And I thought it was just a bit of a bit too complicated, sort of for what we needed. But now that there's starting to be a few more of us, I can see there's like a few gaps there that I'd like um, a bit more control with, and to be able to communicate a little bit more too between the like me when I quote to the artwork to production, um, without having to make sure that they go looking for that information if something is a bit different with a job. So
Mm.
and they've got a few cool features for sort of auto picking the colors, and then you can have your color library uploaded. I guess you could do that with just an Illustrator or whatever too, but it sort of does it almost by itself, and you can
Wow.
just sort of click through and choose a close. Well, it'll pick a close color, and if you wanted to change something a bit different, you can just do that. So, sort of looking at that a little bit. Mm,
And would that integrate with accounts and everything?
yeah, I think it does. I think it does. Definitely does QuickBooks. I think it might do Zero.
If it does QuickBooks, it'll definitely do everything else. Um, okay, and the proofing, is that through an agency or an individual or?
Yeah, I've spoken to Graphic Source a couple of times, and it's sort of the one you hear about the most. And I met the guys when I was in America last year, but if you get staffing through them, they do an awesome job, and they're all like trained, and I think they integrate really well. But you've got to take someone on full time, and it's cheap. It's probably half the price of what we pay our graphic designer now per hour. Um, but we don't need someone 40 hours a week. Um, but I was chatting to, shout out to Amelia from O Swedish Merch in Perth. I was chatting to her the other day, and she mentioned um, a place that she uses, and they offer part-time sort of staffing type things. So um, yeah, I think that might be a good option, because yeah, if we can just get someone like sort of 15 hours a week or something, 10, 15, something like that,
Mm.
um, and they can just do that for a lot less than what we
And
currently pay.
would they do SEPs as well for
I probably wouldn't get them to do SEP, but as far as like the easy stuff, I think they'll be fine to just tick along, um, and then do more of that advanced stuff where like sort of talent is important. We'll do that in house then.
mm, mm. Yeah, it's something I'm anxious about. I do all the artwork and obviously in at the office today, and my plan was to catch up on all the artwork they need for this week because I can see in our system, which is Monday, and interfaces with other things, I can see everything that's there, and there's like one order that's got the screens in and done. So I'm looking at it going, oh man, I got to run through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy doing that because it's always like a kind of puzzle, you know, how
The
best to
steps
create
or
the steps. Yeah.
yeah.
And I enjoy that. It's very kind of satisfying. I'm probably not the best at it and certainly not the quickest, but I can see as we move forward, I'm going to have to find a way of outsourcing that.
Mm.
And I we use Graphic Source for certain things, but only as one-offs. I don't want to pay like you. I don't want to pay for someone full time. I don't. You could probably
Mm.
do film every day here, but certainly wouldn't be a full day. Um, so yeah, I'd like to find someone that I can sort of trust and rely on and do things just the way we like.
Mm.
Because what I found is, um, if you have a job, let's say, I don't know, let's just assume it's 100 t-shirts and it's got a white print, a blue print, and a red print in it. You've obviously got an underbase for, the white, red, and blue. But for us, we make the underbase under the white smaller, the choke smaller.
Mm.
And what I found is a lot of people just apply the same choke across the underbase for all the colors, which is fine for let's say the red and the blue in that example. But it's just a little bit too big for the white, and it gives us a slightly furry edge. So we always make it smaller. And some people just don't like that or get that.
Mm.
So finding someone that knew that or understood that well enough, or that we could train. And honestly, if there was someone in our town that came through the door and said, look, I know how to use Illustrator. I don't know anything about screen printing. If you teach me, I'll give you a good rate. And I'd spend days going
Mm.
through that with someone just to train them, just so that we could employ them to do that, which would take all of that off. But I'm a bit nervous about giving too much control out there, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, do you feel like you'd need to put contracts in place if you do that?
I don't, as far as customer information getting out kind of thing. I don't know. I think for that sort of thing, I'm not too worried. I think for maybe a bit more, then I would like to keep that internal and thinking about like how we share our files with them too.
Yeah.
I think I'll be a bit more careful about what they have access to with them inside. Like I trust our designer with everything. So um, yeah, but as far as customer wise, I don't. Oh, like for just doing mock-ups and proofs and stuff, I'm not too worried for that. But yeah, I think I might keep the more sensitive stuff internal.
Yeah. Okay. So pick and choose what jobs you give them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think yeah, just the easy stuff that doesn't need to be like yeah, just easy. That's just you're doing every day the same, like logo, left chest, back print, and you can't stuff it up too much, but it takes time.
Yeah. The run of the mill stuff, but you get
Mm,
it dead on. Yeah. Yeah. Certainly gives me food for thought thinking about that.
mm,
Because I can't. I can't keep doing this forever. I've got
Mhm.
7 years is my strategy to get out. Um, and want to kind of grow it to a particular size that it can sustain that and not really need me. Um, my friend from the UK who's starting up the Ministry of Shirts UK is coming over a week on Monday, and he's gonna, learn everything from the ground up, from the business end to the printing end to the
Yeah.
heat pressing. And the reason I'm mentioning that is it'll be really a good discipline for me. You know how sometimes if you want to learn something really well, you teach someone else.
Mhm.
And so I'm looking forward to it for lots of reasons. He's a good mate, but also because hopefully it'll allow me to reflect on what bits I need to get out of, because and how to get out of them, artwork being one of them. But it's kind of like with that business model at the moment, he's coming over here, he's going to be a baptism of fire from beginning to end for 3 weeks. He'll go back. We're going to fund a few bits and bobs to get him started, and also obviously all our branding under license. But all the systems that he will use, from email through the websites, through to all the templates, through data storage, everything is ours, so that
Mm.
we've got a level of control, but also the ability to support him. So we put him on one of our training things to do a few bits of software already online, um, and he'll have kit. But to be able to kind of support him on how you do everything really. If there's a
Mm.
stuff up in a piece of artwork, it'll come back to me. And so that's hopefully going to train me on how I might relinquish that part of our business.
Mm.
That's my hope anyway. Maybe it won't. Maybe he'll just be, running. He's a very dynamic fellow, so maybe he'll be running 100% when he gets back, but we'll see.
Mm.
But it is a worry. And, I, everybody that we've ever interviewed on this show, I've really loved, and I really enjoyed all the stories. But sometimes I do wish, um, and maybe I'll get this. It's a bit fantasy now, but maybe I'll get this opportunity, right, to in a few years' time, just to visit them and help them with the business end, because they're all brilliant, really competent screen printers,
Mm.
really pushing the boundaries and growing as individuals and so on. But a lot of them don't seem to have that extra knowledge that's required in the business end of it to kind of get it to the next level. I'd really love
Mm.
to do more of that. But anyway, I digress. Maybe the UK experience will help work that out. We'll have to see.
Scratch the itch for you.
As long as we don't have to move in the middle of him being here, everything will be fine.
Good.
I'm excited. I'm really excited to do that, because it's for us. It's a Ministry of Shirts is a brand that seems to have worked so far. I mean, you've got to watch. You don't suddenly go the other way. Um, and I'd love to see just how well it will replicate in another um,
Mm.
market like the UK. It's very, very competitive.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah, much more so than here, and
Huh.
quite cutthroat.
Surprising.
Yeah,
I thought with a few more people, it might be a bit less competitive.
I think the problem is there's a lot of work. I think there's a good community, like listening to people like um, Danny D from Flipping Print, Flipping Sweet Print Co. It never seems to roll off the tongue, that name. Anyway, Danny's Print Shop, maybe that's what you should call it. I can hear that there's a good community and they all get on and they all know each other. But they are a bit like us. They're the kind of next tier down. They're not the super commercial people.
Yeah.
And they're like monoliths. They're very inflexible, those big companies, but they have about 80% of the market. So
Mm.
we're all kind of bottom feeders, we're just getting the crumbs that are falling from the table a bit. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's probably a good part of the market to be in. Because if you stack them too high, you have to sell them too low, and you want to make sure you're in the median range on pricing. But I think it is pretty cutthroat. But we'll see. We'll find out. See how well it all goes. Cool beans. Well, anything else we want to share with any of our listeners before we go?
That's a good session.
Yeah, it's good to get an update. Hi to everyone online again. Thanks for listening. I'm not going to go through and say like us, and all that stuff. You know what you want to do. You'll do it anyway if you want to. Please do continue to send questions. The email address currently is ASPC, which obviously stands for the Aussie Screen Printing Club. So aspc@ministryshirts.com.au. If you're interested in joining the show, send an email to us. One of us will respond. We also have our own domain, which we just haven't got around to launching. And I think we're also going to be working on an Instagram page to try and promote the show a bit more.
But, yeah, I think that'll be good.
Yeah. All right, me old mate. I'll see you next time. And say goodbye to everyone else. All right, have a good week.
Catch you later. See you guys.
See you, mate. Cheers.